The drivers then on the circuit ready to go for the sprint race here in the Nations Cup. This is going to be hugely exciting to determine the grid for the grand final. Kyle Brun lines it up on pole position. Alongside him on the front row is Kilian Drumont. Then next up on the head of row 2 is Jose Serrano, and he has got Angel Enestrosa for company alongside. Then it is Valerio Gallo. He's P5 on the grid, the Italian driver, just in front of Takuma Sasaki. Next up, Pole Euro, man who's needs to turn his fortunes around after a difficult Berlin, with Takuma Miyazono alongside. Completing the top 10 is Canada's Samuel Cardinal with Guy Barbara for company. And then next up you've got Adriano Kraz-e in P11. And completing the grid is Thomas Labusle, who had some problems in qualifying. He was some 3 seconds off the pace. Now, this being a sprint race, no need to worry about tyres, no need to worry about fuel. It is flat out from lights out to the checkered flag, and it's anybody's guess as to how this will work out.
And it all starts down to turn 1, a downhill braking zone into turn 1. You'll use all the runoff that you possibly can over the curb on the exit, but then it sets up a long back straightaway here on the Watkins Glen long course. One of those beautiful racetracks in all of North America. Historic, it's a beautiful place to be, and it's an awesome place to race. Super high speed.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What about Kilian Drumont? What can he do there on the far right-hand side of your picture? Currently 7th in the standings, with just 2 points on the board so far this season. Good opportunity for him to try and turn things around. Likewise, there is Takuma Miyazono. He's currently P5 with just 4 points out of a possible 12 he could have scored so far this season. Their opportunity really does knock for some drivers, and this is the first test of things, because as we said, this will determine that grid for the grand final. We're ready to go racing though for the sprint race of the Nations Cup here in LA as we get racing underway at Watkins Glen, and Kyle Brun leads the field across the timing line and down towards the first corner. Drumont, Serrano, Enestrosa all in tow behind. Into turn 1, it's not a particularly heavy braking zone, so no dive bomb moves into there. You've got to set it up quite nicely though as we then begin to start opening up the lap, and now we'll see the drivers following in the slipstream behind, just waiting for that right opportunity to try and pounce.
And as you go through those S's, as you're following our driver, you can lose a sight a little bit, so you got to make sure you're hitting your marks correctly as we go here into the chicane a little bit. And this is a barely slow down with the grip that this thing makes here. Then as we head towards the boot, down into the extended portion of the Watkins Glen course, it starts to get into some real flowing corners.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You can see Kilian Drumont all over the back of Kyle Brun. As we come through this left-hander here, you can hear the tyres chirruping in pain as we come down in towards the final part of this lap. A long, lazy hairpin as we come through there, and you're just waiting and waiting and waiting to get on the power as we blast it on to the start-finish straight. You've got to be a bit careful about taking too many liberties through there. You run it wide, you'll end up with the curb on the outside, possibly the wall as well. Now, here's Kyle Brun, and he's in a bit of a disadvantage because, of course, he doesn't have a slipstream. He's the one in front, punching the hole in the air. Kilian Drumont has got the advantage of that slipstream. Can he use it to his benefit, though?
Going through turn 9, one of the slowest corners on the entire racetrack right there. Then head towards turn 10, a quick left-hander that sets up in the final corner back on the front straightaway. And you can see how flowing this race course is. You don't slow down often. That makes passing hard. You're going to try and pass into turn 1 as we head down towards that. Or it was back there, turn 7. Drumont goes all the way to the outside here. Can he get there? Not quite, just showing his nose a little bit, but that's the thing. You're going to try, if you can, get a good run off the final corner to get to the inside to turn 1.
Well, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because he didn't have a particularly bad run off the final corner for Kilian Drumont there, but you can see there, it's left him a little bit vulnerable here to the attack of Jose Serrano and for Angel Enestrosa. But the slipstream, it's effective, but it's clearly not that effective to just blast past. It's not a particularly long straight, is it? Kilian Drumont sort of moves out as we come in towards this bus stop chicane. They ride the curve over there, and you can see the car sort of chirruping over the curbs there. Looks relatively compliant.
And when you hit those curves, in real life, it knocks your head around in the car and it sort of disorients you a little bit. Here, you're just trying to use every bit of racetrack that you can get away without going over track limits through that section, and now you head down towards turn 7 here, the toe of what we call the boot at the Watkins Glen long course. So it looks a bit like a boot in some respects, and now headed to what I think is the other passing zone down into turn 8, the heel of the boot.
Oh, if that's a boot, what shape are your feet? That's what I
Well,
want.
I don't know. It's what they call it. They call it forever, as long as I've ever gone there. I'm not really sure. I've looked at it. It sort of looks like a boot, maybe.
Yeah, okay, if you look at it with your eyes closed, maybe.
Yeah.
Sasaki versus Miyazono, side by side through this left-hander. The two Japanese drivers giving absolutely no quarter at all here. Miyazono looking to try and repay the favour there on Takuma Sasaki, who's dropped down from 7th to 6th place rather to 7th place from where he started. So he's lost 1 position, possibly set to lose 2, maybe even 3, because Guy Barbara is right in the wheel tracks of the two Japanese drivers. as Miyazono pulls to the inside, but hasn't got the advantage. Guy Barber with an 8 lines. That's a bit aggressive and a bit of a mistake, I feel, that he tried to turn into an overtake. He was just a bit of a day late and a dollar short on the brakes there. Thankfully, he managed to avoid any serious contact.
And the problem with that move is that when you try to go to the inside there into turn one, we're seeing a battle for the lead. Drumont's down to the inside.
We're going to be 3 wide here.
Oh, yeah, this is tight.
Oh, Drumont then, it is through into the lead ahead of Jose Serrano. Oh, someone's well off in the back. That's Gallo, who's entered into a different postcode by the looks of things. He fired himself off into the barrier right down the order, and that is pretty much a disaster there for Valerio Gallo, because that's going to give him the mother and father of jobs to do going into that grand final from the back.
Got a real tall task to make that back up, and that can happen down there when you get side by side into the bus stop chicane. Something's got to give. You've got to get single file before you turn in, or you leave yourself at risk of firing off to the outside like he did there.
So Drummond is the lead, Serrano in second, Inestrosa in third, and that's the thing you can see in this race. One mistake and you are going to be so punished so heavily, because you could lose not only time but also 3, maybe 4 places potentially if you run it a little bit wide in a certain corner, or you make a mistake and you end up firing off into the barrier like Valerio Gallo. It can get even worse than that, to be honest with you.
Right, and now as they go through here to the second final corner and into the final corner, you want to make sure you get the best run you can out of here to not leave yourself vulnerable into turn one. And we saw it earlier, if you go to the inside, you run the risk of getting a bad exit. That leads onto the long back straightaway, which is basically through the S's flat out, and therefore you're giving up loads of time if you go to the inside here and don't complete the pass.
Inestrosa was having a look to the inside there of Jose Serrano down into the first corner. Nothing doing for him on that occasion, but Drummond now is in the lead of this one, and you wonder if he will be able to pull out an advantage, but it's so difficult to do so. As you can see, he's just a couple of tenths in front of Jose Serrano. Serrano looking to try and attack as they come in towards the bus stop, which you can make a move through there, but it's not the easiest part of the circuit to do so. You can see it's very tight, very narrow in particular, and you have to ride a lot of curbs. If you make a bit of a meal of it, you'll see what happened to Valerio Gallo, where you end up facing the scenery. Let's have a look at what happened then. So we're here with Kraz-e. He made a bit of a mistake through the first couple of corners.
Got a little wide there on the X and the S's, and once you do that, leaves you completely vulnerable down here. He gets overtaken by 3 cars from that mistake, because that's basically a straightaway. When you leave turn one all the way to the bus stop, you've got to treat it like a straightaway. Any check up in your speed, you're going to pay the price.
Jose Serrano was threading the eye of a needle through there. He's going to try and get 2 places for the price of 1. Meanwhile, Euro here versus Kraz-e. They're banging sort of bodywork there as they come through the right-hander, and side by side they sit still between the two of them. De Bruyne's lost 4 places from where he started. He was on pole position, if you remember, and he's on a trajectory that's seeing him go backwards in this race. He tries to retaliate on the attack against Pole Europe, but that might leave him vulnerable to the charge of Sasaki and Miyazono, who are right in his wheel tracks here.
That was very messy in some respects, but Pole Hero was able to make his advantage. He got very loose there out of 8, then towards 9 was able to gather up, was playing defensive and held on to the spot as they head down to turn 1.
Yeah, through that first corner we go. Lap 5 out of 13. Still plenty of time left in this race for the complexion of it to change. Angel Inestrosa kept his powder pretty dry over the course of the first portion of this race for now. And you can see as we make our way through this right-hander. I'll just have a look at the tyre usage requirement. Now, we are actually going to require a pit stop in this race, so that's a bit of a unique thing here.
You don't need to change a set of tires. You can, but it adds 6 seconds to the pit stop, essentially, so it's a mandatory pit stop, but you don't have to change tires.
Right, interesting. So that's going to make things particularly exciting, one would imagine there, because say if you don't change your tyres, then obviously you gain a bit of time in terms of track position then, in theory. Let's have a look at what happened to Valerio Gallo while we're figuring all that out. He just got a bit too much curve on a bit too much curve on the inside, and that just sent him straight to the scene of the crash, basically, on the barrier. So an unforced error for Valerio Gallo there, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll see how the strategy for the pits is going to work out for this one, as Kylian Drummond has got Jose Serrano and Angel Inestrosa still very close for company behind. But I have to say, they're being all pretty well behaved at this point.
Yeah, but Serrano keeps looking to the inside, occasionally down into turn 1, just sort of peeking that nose out a little bit. Once again, sending a message. We saw this in the Manufacturers' Cup earlier tonight. Drivers who are just trying to show that, hey, I'm here, I can make this move if I want to, but I'm choosing not to at this time. We're almost working together to try and maximize lap time this time.
Okay, so we have to make 1 pit stop then in this race. It's mandatory, but you don't have to change tyres. Laboutelet's decided to do that at the end of lap 5, the beginning of lap 6. I was just about to ask, how do you decide when to make those pit stops here? And you know, how does your strategy work out? Do you decide to get it out of the way early and hope that you get a bit of clear air? Because if that doesn't work out and you end up right on the back of somebody, it could cost you time and then ultimately cost you the position that you were fighting for pre-pit stop.
I assume some of the mid-pack would probably be the first to pit road for that exact reason, getting to clear air, start to rip some really fast lap times, whereas these leaders here who sort of find themselves getting away from the mid-pack are going to utilize this time to feel like they're drafting, they're making up some good lap time at this point, as long as the tires hold on.
Look at Jose Serrano, he's all over the back of Kylian Drumont like a cheap suit here as we come through this left-hander. Just no room for him to use that extra momentum that he's got. And to be honest, I don't think he's particularly that bothered at this point. We're only at the halfway stage now of this race. There's so much time for him to think about where he's going to be making those moves. And you don't want to do anything too rash because it can cost you a lot more than you'd be set to gain.
He got pretty sideways there out of turn 8, so just managing the rear tires. You're starting to see them sort of give out a little bit, sort of wear at this point in time. This car really hurts those rear tires for sure, especially out of here, is that you're just putting a lot of energy and stress through that right rear tire. You see Jose Serrano get a little bit sideways as the exit. That's
a shame for Paul Ura. He's picked up a 1-second penalty for colliding with another car. That's going to drop him down behind De Bruyne for certain, possibly behind Sasaki. Let's have a look at the battle though for the lead as they all come and filter into the pit lane. I thought that might be the case. It's a case of follow the leader. One blinks, they all blink because they just want to maintain track position. They're sort of forcing their hand really there, aren't they?
Yeah, you're basically saying, hey, we're all just going to do this in lockstep and now trying to race it out on the racetrack, not trying to use a different strategy at that point and thinking this is probably the fastest time to do this race.
Can Laboutelet and Gallo try and take profit? Because they pitted a bit earlier on in this one. As you can see, nobody's changing tyres in particular there. As you can see, they're staying on the soft tyres. Not really much point about it. Out of the pit lane we go. Let's have a look at Laboutelet. Where's he emerging? Because he's at racing speed and his tyres, of course, will be up to temperature. They won't have dropped off. So he's now back in the race and he's in 8th position. So it's worked out okay there for Thomas Laboutelet. He's right in the thick of the action. He'll be there ready to try and take profit. Meanwhile, at the sharp end of this one, Serrano versus Drumont. We come down in towards this chicane. Serrano's got the inside line. He's got track position. And now he's got P2. Lovely stuff.
Really nice pass. That was beautiful down there into the bus stop. Drumont played it correctly. You got to just give and take a little bit down in that corner. Going side by side just slows you up so much, especially at this point in the race. Out of the pits, you just want to try and maximize lap time. You don't want to give anything up.
Yeah, it's worked really nicely here for Angel Inestrosa. He's now in the lead of this race by 4 seconds. As you can see, he's got a nice comfortable cushion. He's made his mandatory pit stop and he's cleared off into the distance. Ura's about to serve that 1-second penalty, but given how close the field is out on track, so actually the drivers did change tyres in that one. I wonder whether they would or they wouldn't. So Inestrosa, that's why he's now in the lead.
He's the one.
Yeah, he's the only one who didn't change the tyres, and that's going to leave him quite vulnerable, you would imagine, because what, 4 seconds? It's an advantage, but it's not exactly insurmountable.
Let's see. We'll see if that plays out for them. This is just different strategies that we have seen here before in terms of the Gran Turismo World Series, trying to utilize these different rules to your advantage. We'll see if Jose Serrano's got the speed to start and run him down. Right now, just looking at Inestrosa's tires, they're not terrible, considering the amount of laps that he has on him, but it's going to be about maximizing his lap time right now.
On board here with Takuma Miyazono, P6 for the Japanese driver at the moment, down the start-finish straight and in towards the first turn. Nice and neat and tidy for him. Cardinals just serving, lost the position there to Valerio Gallo, who's trying to fight back after that earlier trip to the barrier. Ura with that penalty dropped down to 7th position, but he's only about a second or so off, so he's still pretty much within slipstream range. If he can put together a couple of clean laps, he might be able to get himself onto the back of Takuma Miyazono. The win probably is going to be a little bit out of question, but we'll see how it works out for him. Meanwhile, Inestrosa and Serrano, the gap now from 3.7 seconds down to just 3 seconds, so that's nearly a second or so that the prevailing field have managed to close up over the course of this lap. Might leave Inestrosa, and probably will leave him quite vulnerable at the end of this one.
It's going to come down to Kenny Block.
Yeah.
Kenny Block, how's it going to time out? Most likely, just looking at the timing here, they are definitely going to catch him with at least a lap, maybe 2 or so to go.
Paul Ura and Thomas Laboutelet under investigation for a collision there as well. So we'll see how that one has all worked out. They're in 7th and 8th place there, respectively. Ura in front of Laboutelet. So obviously they came to blows at some point out on the circuit over the course of the last lap, and we'll see whether the stewards decide to hit them with a penalty.
And one thing Jose Serrano's liking is behind him as he's gapping there to Drumont a little bit as he continues to increase that gap. That's going to give him options when he catches Inestrosa to have some options to not have to protect at the same time that he's trying to be on offense when he's trying to get by Inestrosa. So as he continues to gap the drivers behind him, that's helping him out. It's hurting Inestrosa. He would hope that they would get to them and be racing each other closely.
Just to give you an idea of the difference in pace, we can see the gaps now come down to 1.6 seconds between Inestrosa and Serrano. Last time around for Inestrosa a 1:31.3, Serrano a 1:29.6. So getting on for near enough 2 seconds faster than the leader. It is a case of when and not if. With 3.5 laps remaining of this one, Inestrosa is going to be a bit of a sitting duck in this race. I mean, he's made 3 positions up from where he qualified, which is great news for him, but you can see how close the field is, and also all the drivers, as we know, they're all on fresh soft tyres, so it's now a case of damage limitation here for Angel Inestrosa.
He's running for his life right now. For everything he's got, he's pushing as hard as he can to try and just continue to keep this gap as much as he can. He knows Jose Serrano's going to get there, but the question is, when he does he choose to sort of just let him go and try to maximize the time loss here instead of trying to hold him off and sort of slow him up and allow Drummond and the cars behind to get to him there? That's going to be a choice he's going to have to make and almost time this out when Jose Serrano gets to him.
So then, through the left-hander we go in towards the final couple of corners on this circuit. Serrano sitting there in second position. Inestrosa in the lead of this race, now down to half a second. So Serrano is going to be right on his gearbox through this final corner, and you would imagine planning a move down in towards the first turn as well. On board we ride here with then Jose Serrano. He's got the advantage of the slipstream. He'll have a lot more grip under braking there as well. He doesn't decide to lunge it down into T1. It's a risky one there because you can see it's quite tight and there's a big curve on the outside of it. So you would imagine a good run through these S-bends and in towards the chicane will be where Serrano will try to launch that attack. In the slipstream he is then. He's closing up onto the back of Inestrosa, and it's going to be easy pickings here for Jose Serrano as they draw alongside one another into the bus stop chicane. Serrano goes through and into the race lead once again.
And that was the best case scenario for Inestrosa there, to have him pass down the straightaway into the bus stop. There's the least amount of time lost going side by side. Now he's going to do his best to try and hold off Drummond.
Yeah, I can imagine that is going to be a particularly difficult task, as well as there for Kai de Bruyne, who might be able to try and take profit if Drummond does get held up there behind Inestrosa. He's got the inside line, and look at that. That was decisive and clinical for Drummond. Oh, and de Bruyne's walking through. The door's kind of half ajar, and he just said, look, I've got to make as much ground as I can, and he's threw it into third position, looking to try and launch that attack there on Drummond into the right-hander, but the door not quite ajar enough for de Bruyne to launch an attack into that next right-hander. Through to the left we go then. Serrano now leads, and all the while they were stuck behind. Inestrosa. He's now dropped down to 5th place, by the way. It's costing them a bit of time, and you can see the gap now for Jose Serrano. He's built that up to over a second.
Yeah, he was really able to pull the vault away, and they were sort of caught up here as we go off board with Mollura.
We're going to see the two Japanese drivers, Miyazono and Sasaki, have a bit of a tete-a-tete through the left-hander, I think, and it sends Sasaki into the wall, and Yura takes profit of it and slides himself up into 6th place.
He said, thank you very much.
Yeah, nice and easily done. Yeah, they're under investigation for one another as well. I should imagine they won't be on each other's Christmas cards list after that one. Cardinal's gone for an interesting two-stop strategy, but he's having a bit of a dog's day at the office right down the bottom of the field, so there's no harm in trying a bit of a gamble here in this race. Through the bus stop we go, though, with Kylian Drummond. Kai de Bruyne there in 3rd position, and look at this, Takuma Miyazono right on his back bumper here. And let's see whether the Japanese driver, the 4-time world champion, is going to be able to launch an attack. It looks like Sam Cardinal's retired from this race, the Canadian driver, or whether he's got some technical problems, I don't know. But either way, for him, it has not worked out at all, and he'll be starting that grand final right from the very back of the grid, unfortunately.
Takkuma's looking for the run here, down into turn 8, just hoping to have a little bit of momentum, maybe try to set up from the final corner down into turn 1. We've seen that move be attempted a couple times, or hold back and try to use it down into the bus stop. If you're keeping up with Inestrosa, who qualified 4th for this race, not the no tire strategy, he's all the way back to 8th right now. That has not panned out for him.
No, it's a gamble, and it didn't pay off. I mean, look, he's had no points scored so far this season. He's right at the bottom of the order. Has to try something to try and get himself up there. It was a risk, and unfortunately the reward is not there for the taking. Down in 8th position as the best he can hope for as it stands for now. Meanwhile, here is Miyazono in the slipstream with Kai de Bruyne. He's got the inside line down into T1. Can he make that stick? That'll be brilliant if he can. Oh, Yura's going to walk through it as well. De Bruyne's going to get shoveled to the curb on the outside and loses 2 places in the space of 1 corner. So Miyazono and Yura are through for 3rd and 4th place now respectively. Yura on the attack against Miyazono. What a fantastic run he's had through the first couple of corners. Miyazono knows that, goes for that defensive line, and here comes de Bruyne ready to try and take profit of it as well. Through the bus of chicane, there's contact. Yura's onto the curb. De Bruyne goes back through on the inside as well. So Yura goes from attacking to defending to losing places.
What an awesome bit of battling there amongst these drivers. They played it as clean as you possibly could there. Yura was trying trying to stay there, but he just couldn't, and at that point, he couldn't get through the bus stop correctly. You're out of phase, you're out of the line, and that opened up the door for Pt2.
Yeah, worked really nicely there for Pt2, and he lives to fight another day. Let's see whether Jura can launch a retaliation. It's brought Labutale and Sasaki right back into play then here for this one as well. Miyazono is the man on the move there. What have we got? A lap and a half now remaining, so not much time left. At the front of this one, Jose Serrano's built up the advantage, but it's pretty much stabilised at about 1.2 seconds or so over the likes of Kylian Drumont, and subsequently then another further 1.6 seconds. He is in front of Takuma Miyazono, so maybe not a battle for the podium that we're going to see to the end of this one, but you never know. One mistake from Miyazono and it could be right up to play for again.
It was an optimistic move by De Bruin there through turn 8. It's left him vulnerable here to pull Jura as we go down the front stretch. As he tried to do what Miyazono did a lap before. Yes, he's looking to the inside, doesn't quite get there, thinks better of it. Now trying to set up for the exit down towards the bus stop.
That was smart there from Jura. You can see what he was trying to do, just force De Bruin to break a few metres too late, running a bit wide, compromise his run. It didn't quite pay off for him at the moment, but there's every opportunity for them to try and take profit. Labutale's there lurking in the background as well as Takuma Sasaki. This is the final lap of action, and this is the race that will decide the grid for the grand final. No further action between Sasaki and Miyazono as they came to blows a few laps ago. They kick up grass and dust and dirt on this final lap as they are really beginning to push the limits here.
And it's really De Bruin just trying to hold off Jura at this point right now. That the third place Miyazono has been able to get just a bit far enough away that I feel like he can hold on to as long as he hits his marks through these last set of corners in this lap. But it's really a battle there for fourth. Miyazono can get, let's look at the inside. De Bruin didn't quite get there, trying everything he can.
Yeah, certainly did there, did Pt2, but again, just pushing the limits a little bit too hard. On board here with Jura, who's got that unfortunate position of trying to attack, but also defend as well, because Labutale's there, ready to try and pounce. Just a few more corners now remaining here at Watkins Glen, unless a desperate lunge comes on the inside for Pt2. He was trying to think about a move there, but it just wasn't ready for the taking. And I think Miyazono, if he can just hold his line and not fluff it into the final couple of corners, he'll be able to hold on to third place. Meanwhile, what a drive from Jose Serrano, who comes through to take the victory in the sprint race and pole position for the grand final. He wins it here at Watkins Glen ahead of Kylian Drumont and Takuma Miyazono on the podium. Pt2 finishes in P4 ahead of Pol Jura in P5. But
great
again,
race
we're
right there.
running out of superlatives to describe the run of form that this young man has had. Jose
Serrano gets pole in the final.
is on supreme
That race is up
form
next.
in
Thank you, guys.
2025. He's won both of the grand finals, and he picks up another sprint race for his troubles as well.
Absolutely at the top of his game, and you can see it in every decision-making that he has, the speed, obviously, that he has right now. And throughout that whole race there, it was just
Miyazono is going to be a threat,
sort
though.
of hold back,
That's
and then
right.
when to try and strike. There
Saki
wasn't many
also.
optimistic moves. They were decisive
German's
moves
driving well.
that went in his favor. And then when it was up for offering to go for the win, he was able to drive away from the field, create the gap he needed, run down Inestrosa, and set sail.
Yeah, very well done to him. Commiserations, though, to the likes of Angel Inestrosa.
Thank you,
and also
guys.
to
Hold
Valerio
tight.
Gallo there as well. Inestrosa tried an alternative strategy, wasn't one that paid off for him.
Yeah, if you're new to the channel, I'd join, play, comment, most importantly, enjoy your content. That's right. Check out the playlist and also the community page. Thank you. Enjoy the race. That's right. Let's get some. Serrano for the win. What do you reckon, guys? It's out of Spain, Japan, France. That's right. Well, let's see. Let's see what happens. Thank you.
One can be crowned the winner of World Series 3 in 2025 here in Los Angeles. This is going to be hugely exciting to see what will happen as the drivers are ready to go for the start of this race. Let's work out how they all line up on the grid. The sprint race decided it just a few moments ago, and it sees Jose Serrano, the championship leader, lining up on pole position. Kylian Drumont is alongside him on that front row of the grid. Row 2 is headed by the quadruple world champion Takuma Miyazono, with Pt2, the debutant podium man from Berlin, alongside. Then Pol Jura heads the third row of the grid in 5th place ahead of Thomas Labutale, who started last in the sprint and managed to get to 6th of the checkered flag. He's just in front of Takuma Sasaki and Adriano Kraz-e. Next up on the grid, you've got Guy Barbara in P9, and completing the top 10 is Angel Inestrosa, whose mistaken strategy cost him very dear. Valerio Gallo, second in the championship, lines up P11 ahead of this grand final, and Samuel Cardinal P12 as well. Now, we've got a difference in tyres at the start of this race. Soft, medium and hards available for the drivers. A lot of the drivers there starting on the medium tyres, but three, Barbara, Inestrosa and Gallo, going for the hards at the sharp end of this race. What do you think that's all about?
I think it's exactly what we discussed. It's thinking how to do something different, especially for Valerio Gallo, who comes in this race second in points, having a disastrous sprint race there, puts him at the back of the field. He's thinking maybe not just about winning, but it's just moving himself forward towards the points. You have to do something different, knowing he'll be in a bit of traffic early on, and see if this could work to his favor.
Yeah, I imagine the idea, of course, with the hard tyres is get them out of the way as soon as you possibly can. The hard tyres like lava, basically. You don't want to be able to put it on it for as short as a distance as you possibly can, given the pace difference between the soft, medium and the hard tyres. So get them out of the way, get yourselves onto the medium or the soft tyres, and make some progress in the mid to the latter stages of this race. But Jose Serrano will lead the field around the final corner and across the line as we get the grand final underway here for the Nations Cup in Gran Turismo World Series 3 in Los Angeles. We're in the Daytona Road Course and we're coming down towards the first turn with Serrano leading from Kylian Drumont. On the brakes we go. Already moves being made in the background there with Cardinal having more grip under braking. He was looking for a move on Valerio Gallo. Also, Euro coming under pressure from Thomas Laboutelet as well. We come to the infield section for the first time. Pretty even Stevens and pretty fair and sharp at the front of the field. But let's see how it all works out as we come through the fast left-hander and in towards this hairpin.
Yes, the other horseshoe. The first one's the international horseshoe. This shoots you towards turn 6, which leads on to the first portion of the banking, one of the most important corners on this racetrack. It's tough to get the power down right here. The track kind of falls away to the outside. You see a little wiggle there from Miyazono. That will happen lap after lap.
Yeah, no doubt about it. On board here we are then with Kylian Drumont on the banking then. You can see Jose Serrano's gone for a low part of the banking there, and he's able to hold the speed quite nicely. We come down in towards what was known as the bus stop chicane, now known as the Le Mans chicane. We flick it through that left-hander. You can hear it's just sort of a courtesy lift as you go through there, shift it down the gearbox and running as close to the grass, and clip the grass actually on the outside of it. But Jose Serrano doing a great job leading this one. A couple of tenths in front of Kylian Drumont. Here though is Takuma Miyazono sitting in the wheel tracks of Kai de Bruyne. You've got Paul Ura and Thomas Laboutelet very close behind indeed, and here comes Kylian Drumont side by side. He is now with Jose Serrano to take the lead of the race as we come across the timing line for the first time of asking. He's through and into the lead. He's kicking off behind there as well. You've got Kai de Bruyne who is side by side with Takuma Miyazono as we come through the first corner. De Bruyne now up and into third place.
You saw how tight it was. They were 2x2 down into turn 1. You saw the pass there by Drumont around the outside. That's the effect of the draft, and you're going to continually see that throughout this race. Drivers, as long as they stay close enough together through the infield portion, there's so many opportunities to make passes utilizing the draft through the oval portion of the Daytona Road Course. And that's what every driver's thinking as they go here towards turn 6. How can I get the best run to stay as close as I can and then utilize that draft to make a pass?
Yeah, on board here then with Thomas Laboutelet, so he's made a position up from where he started. He was P6 on the grid, just to remind you. He's now up into 5th position at the expense of Paul Ura. Barbara, Inestrosa and Gallo, they were the 3 outliers. They started this one on the hard compound of tyre, and you wonder how their race is going to play out. We come down then in towards the chicane once more, and it's kind of damage limitation for those 3 drivers in the opening stages of this race here, Parker.
Right, that's really, you look at Gallo in last right now, utilizing those tires to see how long they choose to stay on them. Probably the shortest amount of time possible, then to get to the mediums and the sauces. We're on board with Miyazono now. Oh, look to the inside. Now pops to the outside, possibly. Didn't quite have the momentum right there. He chooses to stay behind Laboutelet to the outside right now into 1. That's usually tough. The track is off camber there. If you get too far to the outside, you'll sort of fall away from you. Yeah, Drumont and Serrano were side by side for the race lead at that point there as well. But Laboutelet is throwing the kitchen sink at this one, or at least trying to, on Takuma Miyazono. They come through that first hairpin, but nothing doing for them at the moment. De Bruyne sitting in 3rd position, just keeping his powder dry at the moment. Just doesn't want to let the likes of Drumont and Serrano get away. Subsequently, they want to be a little bit careful about battling against one another, because if they do, it'll drop them right into the clutches of the prevailing field, and they are hungry and ready to pounce. Yeah, you don't want to be side by side, so here turn 6 onto the banking right now. And I have to wonder if Jose Serrano sort of let Drummond get there just to utilize a little bit of draft. We talked about fuel saving could possibly be a part of this race. They can't quite go the whole way on a tank without a little bit of fuel saving, so that could be some of the thought process there, dropping a second and utilizing a bit of that draft to save some fuel.
So on board here then with Thomas Labousse. What are the key parts of this circuit here, Parker? How do you set a fast lap time? How do you make sure that you've got the secrets of Daytona?
In most cars, I would say the infield for sure, the international horseshoes, and the turn 6 leading on the back straightaway, and then your X out of the bus stop. In the X 2019, I'm not quite sure. It's incredibly fast. The bus stop is not a traditional corner. You see Serrano go to the outside, Drummond. I guess he wasn't saving fuel, of course, like I said, because he chooses to go back to the lead right now. And sometimes you see that at this racetrack in certain cars where you use that. Oh, we got De Bruyne spinning out there.
Yeah, big moment there. And De Bruyne, the big loser in all of that. And we saw other drivers going off onto the grass. Sasaki's dropped down the order as well. So that's kicked off in the sort of battle for the podium places there, really. The upshot is it's now Serrano that leads, Drummond in second, and Miyazono is up and into third place, Labousse into fourth position. So we've lost one of the competitors from that battle for the podium, and Miyazono and De Bruyne are now under investigation with one another for that collision. I'd love to see a replay because we didn't really call the back end of that crash, and I wonder whether Miyazono was the aggressor in that instance. Through onto the banking we go for the fourth time out of 30, and we've got to keep an eye on the tyre wear for the mediums as well, because of course they're the halfway house between the hards and the softs. Let's have a look at meanwhile what happened here to De Bruyne with the Boutelet in the background. There was a bit of contact between himself and Miyazono. How'd you read that one?
So that is a very typical incident at Daytona Road Course, and it's the fact that as you come off of turn 1 there, you kind of, the track goes back to the left a little bit, so that outside car is put in an awkward position where they have to get left. The inside car doesn't want to give them that space like Miyazono did, and you have that altercation and they come together like you saw. That's very typical at this racetrack. We see it in almost any race you have here, so this is really tight. 2x2x2 down in turn 1 amongst all these drivers.
Yeah, this is phenomenal. Looking at Stroza with the inside line. I thought he was going to have a dandem lunge to the inside. Sasaki and De Bruyne are also going wing mirror to wing mirror as they make their way through the first corner. I tell you what, though, for the likes of Stroza, Gallo and Barbara, this is actually working out quite nicely for them because they're now on the back of some medium shod runners, and it will just give them the impetus there to try and hold on to the back of them, even though they're on a slower compound of tyre. You can see Stroza pulled alongside Sasaki, but Sasaki with the mediums, it's just great attraction out the corner, nothing that Stroza can do, and himself, Gallo, and also Barbara need to be a bit careful they don't get involved in squabbles amongst one another and let those two drivers get away too much, because it could come back to bite them later on in the race.
And one of the things they're doing there, they'd love to see them close enough to the infield because that allows them to utilize the draft again through the banked portions and essentially stay closer than they naturally would on just pure lap time with those slower tires.
On board here then with Jose Serrano as we come through the bus stop then, you see how much curb and grass they're clipping. They are literally millimetres away from disaster. And the thing is with these cars, you drove it yesterday, Parker, they are tricky on the limit because all the torque's at the top end of the rev range.
Super tricky there when you get the throttle down. Drummond goes to the outside here. Jose Serrano, he's going to utilize this pass we've seen twice from these two. And sometimes this actually can look like battling, but it's almost working together at this racetrack because the draft is so powerful. When you're in Jose Serrano's position there, you let Drummond do that, then you'll get the toe the next time around through the banking and vice versa. You'll swap positions lap after lap like we're seeing from those two.
Stroza and Barbara battling. It might be for the last positions in this race at the moment, but it might come back into their favour later on. You can see them very close to one another. Valerio Gallo, again, not made too much of an impression on this race, but he's playing the long game here. This is what all of these drivers, Gallo, Stroza and Barbara, are doing. They've started on the hard compound tyre. They've gone ugly early, haven't they, really, here? Trying to make sure that they've got that tyre out of the way as soon as they possibly can. So they'll be on a quicker set of compounds towards the end of the race, whereas, of course, everybody on the medium tyres, depending on which way they go in terms of the strategy, will have the hard tyre to do at the end of the race.
Where'd you come up with that to?
It's something you use in nightclubs in the UK. Yeah. I'm glad that one translated. I'm glad that one translated across the pond. On the brakes we go, in towards the chicane then. Look at Miyazono, he's all over the back there of Jose Serrano. And again, they're overtaking one another, they're changing positions, but it's nothing to get too excited about at this particularly early stage of the race, because you know that they're just giving each other racing room. They're not fighting these positions too hard, the ones that are being attacked, and they're just, again, waiting for the right moment to go, because it's when the pit stops come out out. That's what nobody knows is going to happen, because even though you're on the medium tyre, doesn't mean they're all going to go for the soft tyres in the mid-stint. They might go for the hard tyres, or they might decide to play a different strategy. We have seen drivers doing 2 stops. We've seen some doing 3-stop strategies as well, which is a bit of a road call, I have to say, but sometimes it does pay off.
And what they're close to doing, these front 4, is actually getting away from Paul Ura, who's in 5th by enough of a gap that he wouldn't have the draft anymore. He's just over 2 seconds from the leader, about a second behind 4th place here. So if they continue to work together, utilizing the draft, they could separate themselves from Paul Ura and sort of have their own pack.
Absolutely. Well, Valerio Gallo will be hoping to make some progress from 10th at the moment. He'll be, he finishes there. He's more disappointed than Arusa, who's just had his tonsils out, to be completely honest with you. But there's still plenty of time for this race to unfold. We're not even 1/3 of a distance through it as we ride on board here with Thomas Laboutele. You can see there Takuma Miyazono, as part of his routine, always listens to a particular song the night before every race, and it's always interesting, that race drop. I'm not familiar with it, I must be honest with you, but I'll give it a go, to be honest, because Takuma Miyazono he's a quick driver, and I could probably learn a thing or two to pick up my pace.
I would like something like that.
Did you have
any help there is?
Do you have any superstitions when you go racing, like putting one boot on, or one before the other, or, you know?
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I try to put the left on first.
You do?
Yeah.
I always find it.
Left glove.
I'm exactly the same actually when I go racing, but to be honest, I'm so slow, it doesn't really make much of a difference. Anyway, side by side with Serrano versus Drummond as they change positions once more down the start-finish straight and into turn 1. Miyazono and Laboutele very close to one another behind there as well. And you can see Laboutele, again, he's just looking a bit threatening, and Miyazono picks up a penalty then.
Wow.
1 second penalty for that collision that we saw earlier on with Kyle Brun.
And I think that's the correct call in a lot of respects. You know, he was there, he didn't give him the room. On the exit, he drove into the left rear of De Bruin and spun him out, so you get a penalty.
Yeah, it's a shame for De Bruin because he's sort of spoiled his race there, really. I mean, he's on the coattails of the likes of Sasaki, etc., but it's not where he should be relative to the pace that we've seen for him, and that's how different these events can be. You know, last time out in Berlin, he was on for his first podium, and he was absolutely delighted with that after having fought for it for such a long time. And it's sort of hero to zero stuff here, this one as well. Now, for Takuma Miyazono, he's got that penalty, so he's going to drop behind Laboutele, of course, but it might drop him even behind Paul Ura because they're not too far adrift, and that penalty zone is at the quickest point on this circuit. So we're coming through in towards it now. You'll see the 2 yellow markers either side of the track, and you lose, of course, that 1 second in terms of the penalty time, but you also lose that time getting back up to speed there as well. So Laboutele is going to fire past like Miyazono's just stuck the handbrake on. Wow. And there he goes.
This is going to be a huge penalty.
Yeah, so he drops down then behind Thomas Laboutele. And where is Ura? He's right on his gearbox then, just a 1/10 of a second behind. Laboutele's profited from it. He's up into 3rd place. Our first pit stop takes place, meanwhile. Inestrosa from 12th and last in this one has pitted from the hard tyres. Now, where does he go in this? Does he go for the mediums? Does he go for the soft compound of tyres? And crucially, when's he going to take some fuel on board as well? We're quite early into the race, so not really too much point, but this is the moment that cost Miyazono and also De Bruin as well. And there's the penalty that Miyazono just served.
And you can see there where Miyazono just went to the right at the same point that De Bruin was going left. It's just a classic collision here, but he was definitely in the wrong, not giving him the racing room he needed.
No doubt about it. Inestrosa then onto the medium and compound of tyres for his first of 2 pit stops at a minimum in this race. So he'll now be on the same tyres as the majority of the field in this one, but of course they'll be significantly fresher than everybody else at this stage in the race as well. You can see that there. 40% of the rear tyres are left pretty much for all of the drivers inside the top 10 that are on the hard compound of tyres, whereas Inestrosa, a brand new set of fresh mediums, they're going to feel so lovely compared to the hards he was on.
And you know, in super speedway racing in NASCAR, when you race at Daytona, you want to pit in a pack because you want to utilize the draft. You don't want to be out there by yourself. I think this is very similar, and we'll see many of these drivers try to pit together because they're going faster, utilizing that draft than they would be just by themselves. Even if you've got those better tires, you want to have to utilize the draft to turn really fast lap times.
And you can see these drivers at the sharp end of this one here, Parker. Obviously, they're all working together at this point. They're in a race with their shoelaces tied to one another here at this point, but eventually they're going to have to undo those shoelaces and start fighting. It's loads of time still left to go in this one.
This is one of those races where you see 12 lead changes and it's like, wow, that sounds awesome, but it's not the full story. They're working together, utilizing those lead changes to have the fastest lap times and not slow each other down.
You can see exactly what it would mean for Jose Serrano if the checkered flag fell now, though. It would be another 6 points in his arsenal, and it would give him quite a commanding advantage as we go into the World Finals. And, you know, fair play, because he really would deserve it, but there's so much time left to go. And I suppose if you're the likes of Kylian Drumont and Thomas Laboutelle here, how do you play this in terms of your strategy for this race? Because do you follow what Serrano's doing in the hope that you'll keep track position?
I would, personally, just utilizing the draft, being able to follow him, knowing he's the fastest driver here, most likely the winningest driver of the season. You think, if I follow him, with the draft, you don't know what can happen, what you could pull off in that final stint. So stay as close to him as you can. There's no reason to try something different when you're this close and have the draft in your favor.
Just to give you an idea of the difference in pace between Angel Inestrosa and the sharp end of the field. Last time around, he was a 1:28.8, which of course wasn't a full flying lap because he was out of the pits. That was an out lap for him over the course of that one. But just to give you an idea of the first sector, he was about a second or so clear of anybody else last time around. So really impressive stuff there for Jose Serrano, and we'll see what it means for him later on. Barbara and Gallo, they managed to extend those hard tyres a little bit later on. They've pitted a couple of laps after Angel Inestrosa here, which means their tyres, whichever they go on to, will be a couple of laps newer. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out for them, because we did see that in the Manufacturers' Cup earlier on this evening. I won't spoil the result for you if you haven't caught it. I do implore you to go to do it, because the racing was spectacular. But we saw some drivers pitting early, and ultimately they ended up paying the price for that because they lost track position.
They did, but if you can turn the fast lap times after this, especially on those tires, that's going to help you. The hard part is that these leaders are continuing to work together and utilizing this draft, because that's just going to make it tougher, even if you're by yourself on better tires, to make up that time. Maybe, as I look at some of the lap times, you can get close to their lap times, but to be faster than what you want when you're on those tires, to make up that time and make up some track position, is going to be a really tall task.
Yeah, no doubt about it. On board then we ride here with Thomas Laboutelle with that relatively clear view down towards the first corner. Drumont and Serrano, and again just keeping him honest at this race. Sasaki's picked up a penalty here. You can see that with the flashing red dot next to his name. Not quite sure what that is all about, but something to keep an eye on there for him, presumably because we didn't see anything come up, and it'll be down to track limits. But he's coming into the pit lane at the end of this one. So he's the first of the medium shop runners, the drivers who started this race on the medium tyres, I should say, that has pitted then. So let's see how he plays this in terms of that strategy. But you can now see it's gone from what was a three-way fight up to a now five-way fight, because Miyazono and Yura are right in the picture here.
Yeah, that penalty for Miyazono really pulled Yura back up into this front four cars, and now it's sort of a five-car train and leads this race right now, because he was about 2 seconds back from the leader, a second back from fourth, but when Miyazono got his penalty, he was able to utilize the draft with Miyazono to get back to this front pack, and now it's expanded to 5 cars in this lead pack.
Yeah, let's see how these drivers are going to play this one. And as you said, you would imagine it'll be a case of follow the leader, whoever, you know, blinks first from
I would
this.
think, but
yeah.
I haven't been right very often.
Well, you know, I'm almost never right, to be completely honest with you. Down towards the braking zone we go of that chicane, threading the eye of a needle through there. So Sasaki went from the mediums to the hards then. So if you're the drivers that are up ahead of that, are you going to go and do the same? I suppose that's the risk though, isn't it? You go to the hard tyres and sort of deal with that pain in the middle stages of the race, which then would leave you the soft tyres at the end of it. But if you did the reverse of that, of course, that would leave you vulnerable at the end. So it's so difficult to work out. This is all going to work out. Obviously, you've got fuel to consider in this one. Whoever is, you know, might be saving fuel. If you're the likes of Thomas Laboutelle, you're just sitting in the slipstream. Maybe you can do a bit of lift and coasting, save a bit more fuel, save maybe a couple of seconds on the pit stop, which could give you track position after it's all worked out.
I have to think Laboutelle is doing that, because I've watched him continually have the chance to go by Jose Serrano here and poke to the outside. He chooses to stay right behind him. See some Kraz-e on pit road right now, going to the hard tire, and I think that's, you know, for him, Laboutelle there riding, that's definitely his thought process. As I'm in the lead pack, my advantage here would be, how can I make that pit stop the shortest amount, or not have to take much fuel at all by staying here in the draft and saving fuel.
Yeah, more medium shop runners, Kraz-e and Cardinal going on to the hard compound then in the middle stint of this race. And you can see the drivers at the sharp end of this one, their rear tyres are now looking pretty second-hand. So you would imagine it's going to be this time around that they're going to be coming into the box. Let's see who decides to dart in. We're coming towards the chicane for the 13th time of asking. Threading it through there.
You can see the throttle trace right there as he got towards the bus stop, just feathering in a little bit before they got to the braking zone, just standing there right behind Drumont.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They're surely going to have to come into the box then at the end of this lap. I think they're just going to be pretty much bound by circumstance then, really. And Dumont, as he is side by side here with Jose Serrano, it's a race into the pit lane here. He's trying to get track position to give him more position on the exit of the corner. Now, are they all going to follow the same strategy in terms of the tyres? Dumont, Serrano, Laboutelet, Miyazono, De Bruyne, all into the box for this one then, as well as Pol Ura. And if they all go to the hard copper tyre, it'll be all's fair in love and war. It'll be pretty even Stevens. But if someone goes to the soft tyre, plays a bit of a gamble, or maybe takes on some fuel at this stage, I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're just going to follow everybody else's strategy, because, you know, though it might give them an advantage now, they'll have to take that pain a little bit later. And indeed, you can see Jose Serrano exiting this one in the lead, but with Laboutelet and Dumont right on his gearbox then, as they all filter out onto the race circuit and make their way through the hairpin for the 14th time after their first pit stop has now taken place.
And that was such a sneaky move by Serrano into pit road, utilizing the drag, got to the outside to be side by side as they hit pit road. That gives him a little bit of advantage as they hit pit road to the line. He gets the lead out of the pits, now back where he wants to be. And on these hard tires, we'll see, this could potentially be a place where within his pace, could he stretch that gap to the infield to maybe try and get away and break this track slate?
Yeah, it's so difficult to break a slipstream on this circuit, though. That is the problem, isn't it? Because it's just a slipstream style of circuit, really, where you're running to the checkered flag with drivers very close behind. So plenty of time for this one to play out, and well, Jose Serrano there, just 0.3 of a second the advantage he now has over Thomas Laboutelet, who's ascended himself up into second position after starting this one in 6th place. Samuel Cardinal's also made some good progress in this one. He's into P7 as well, in front of Guy Barbara and Valerio Gallo. In Estrosa's where he started, if you remember, he was the first driver to pit in this race. He went from the hard tyres onto the mediums, which is a good strategy in terms of giving him a bit of clean air, a bit of track position, but it might come to pay him in the backside a bit later on, as we see Guy Barbara with Valerio Gallo side by side into the braking zone. Barbara with the advantage then, and with track position now, and into 7th place. Gallo and Cardinal slot in behind.
That was a really great move there by Gallo to the outside. He knew the clear Cardinal on the inside, but stayed there with Guy Barbara on the inside, down to turn 1. Couldn't quite make it work, as you just don't have the grip on the outside. But with these medium tires, he's showing some great pace as they try to move forward from the back of the pack early this race.
Yeah, through into that right-hander as we ride on board here with Valerio Gallo. You can see the steely face of concentration for the 2021 Nations Cup World Champion. The results have not been particularly forthcoming over the course of this evening here in Los Angeles, but he does still sit second in the championship as it stands for now, just 3 points adrift of Jose Serrano. As we look at fact there for Guy Barbara at the bottom left-hand side of your screen, he's currently in P7, the leading medium-shod runner in this race. Just to remind you, Barbara, Gallo and Estrosa all, of course, started this one on the hard tyres. They're now on the medium tyres in the middle stint.
Guy Barbara started driving Gran Turismo at 7 years old. I think I was the same.
No, yeah.
It was just not this Gran. It would have been Gran Turismo 3.
Yeah, it's so interesting how everyone's got a story when it comes down to Gran Turismo. You know, talking to some of the audience here in LA, everyone's, of course, had some experience with the Gran Turismo Championships. As Laboutelet now gets a bootful of Jose Serrano into the back of him there through turn 1. That's left Dumont with the inside line and a possibility to try and attack as they go side by side into the hairpin. Serrano gets it back and into second position. Ura's there in the background ready to try and take profit, as well as Takuma Miyazono, but now it is Laboutelet that leads for the first time of asking in this race.
You can tell as we get past halfway here, things getting slightly more aggressive at this time. Right there, that move down into turn 1, Serrano getting the back of Laboutelet. Dumont trying to get to the inside. He tried a defensive move to hold him off as these 5 cars have condensed back together here. I think for Serrano, he thought maybe if he could get to the lead, harder tires, maybe they'd race out the pits a little bit, could get a bit of a gap, but absolutely not the case. He's now firmly in this pack.
I have to say, it's a bit of a shame that these leading runners did not go for an alternate strategy. I'd love to have seen somebody just bolt a set of soft tyres on in the middle stint for it, and just see if it works out. I suppose there's a lot to lose in those circumstances. You know, track position and Dumont over the curb, lost time, and that sends Ura into the back end in there as well, who subsequently loses a place to Takuma Miyazono.
That was really sketchy, very close to losing it. This car is so finicky. It's such on a knife edge at times. It's very reactive, but if you get those big slides, they're hard to hold on to. Drummond did a great job through there, through the Le Mans chicane, holding on to that car, but loses a ton of time.
Yeah, really well done there for Kylian Drummond, but as you say, a shame there for him. As a result of that, he's now down into 5th position. He's got a fair bit of work to do to catch up onto the back of Miyazono and of Paul Ura. And look at that, he's just put a bit of daylight between Serrano and Labuschagne. Only about 7 or 8 tenths of a second or so, but just enough for them to not have to worry in their mirrors immediately behind. I don't think that means the top two are going to start attacking one another, but I wonder if they might be able to use that, get a bit of impetus, start working together now to build out a cushion over the likes of Miyazono, Ura and Drummond.
Yeah, they enjoyed seeing that from Drummond there with that check up into Paul Ura, and it slowed up enough that Miyazono was able to go by there, give them just this little bit of gap, so they're starting to think at these points, maybe we can get a gap, but you just know if you don't make it happen through the infield, that draft will condense you all back together. As Jose Serrano there with a bit of a lead over Labuschagne. They're not quite drafting the way we saw earlier between him and Drummond.
Yeah, he's starting to pull the pin now a bit, isn't he, here, Jose Serrano, and I wonder if that could prove to be a good move, because if he's able to get a bit of an advantage in a bit of track position, that would be a very welcome result. And I'd say his track position in terms of just, again, not having to worry about the immediacy of what's going on behind you in your mirrors. But I suppose the converse of that is if you start beginning to push, it means you're going to start needing to save fuel. And of course, he's going to be expending more fuel because he hasn't got the slipstream like all of the other drivers stuck in that train behind. Kraz just picked up a penalty, by the way. I think he's just served that one, and presumably that must have been for track limits because we didn't see anything come up on the screen. Been quite an anonymous race so far for Adriano Kraz. De Bruyn and Sasaki under investigation for a collision there as well, so we'll pick the bones out of what happened there. But the upshot is De Bruyn is now down and into 10th position. Sasaki is plumb last by 4 seconds, so clearly something has happened there to the Japanese driver. It's not worked out at all for him.
You think for Serrano and Labuschagne, they thought maybe they could get away. I'm starting to see that opportunity decrease right here as Miyazono gets back. Paul Ura getting up there as well. So I just think they were in that zone of maybe potentially doing such a thing, but it's starting to look like it's going to condense back together like we see majority of these race amongst these 5 cars being so in a very tight pack.
So put me in the cockpit of these cars at the moment here then, Parker, because obviously we're in a bit of a quieter phase of the race. You know, in terms of the on-track action, they're not exactly dive-bombing each other at every corner. If you're Thomas Labuschagne, Takuma Miyazono, etc., you're sitting behind the drivers in the lead of this race. What's going through your mind? How are you planning your sort of final third?
I think at this time you're honestly assessing your competitors. Where do you think they're better than you? Where do you think that you could work and improve but a little bit, and also knowing when are they going to make that first move to get on those soft tires? When does that happen? Do you follow them? Do you try to do something different? Most likely you want to just follow the leader to get on those softs immediately, not let them get away. And so this portion of the race is just a bit of assessing at this time as you watch Labuschagne go to the lead over Jose Serrano with that same pass we've seen multiple times, and you're just trying to set yourself in a position where you feel like you can react to that pit stop, put those softs on, and be in a position to hopefully strike in that final stint.
I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? Obviously, at other circuits where the slipstream maybe isn't so prominent, De Bruyn picks up a 1-second penalty for the incident with Takuma Sasaki, by the way, so he was clearly deemed as the aggressor. We didn't see exactly what happened, but yeah, just going back to that thought. So I suppose if you're the likes of, you know, Kylian Drummond, for example, you're at the back of this train at the moment. I mean, if you try and do the undercut and stick a set of soft tyres on before everybody else, sure, it might give you a bit of track positioning. Maybe you come out in clean air during your pit stop and it gives you that track position to be able to take advantage when everybody else makes their pit stop. But the problem is, it'll leave you so vulnerable at the end of the race because the slipstream is so powerful at this circuit. It's just not worth that gamble.
Yeah, the only way to avoid the slipstream or to try and combat it is just to be really good to the infield, right? And that's just typical of Daytona Road Course. No matter what you're racing, that's always the case. You try to do all the hard work to the infield to get away, to not allow the driver behind to have the easy work of utilizing the draft through the banking sections, but it's just such a tall task, and if you go earlier onto those softs and put yourself at a grip deficit, you're most likely not going to be able to hold them off down through the oval portions.
Side by side here with Serrano versus Labuschagne. Labuschagne was leading across the line. Serrano now back in front by the time we get down in towards T1. Look at Valerio Gallo, who's making a great ascension through the field. He's closed the deficit down to these hard-shot runners and is really making hay whilst the sun shines. It's exactly what he needs to do because those medium tyres are going to start to come towards the end of their useful shelf life a bit sooner than these hard tyres, and he's got, of course, a pace advantage of about 0.6, 0.7 of a second or so, and he's really really taking profit of it here is Valerio Gallo. He's made his way up through the field, up into 5th position. And he needs to do that, really, because if he wants to trap position, this is exactly how to do it while the field is all closed up.
This has been an awesome drive by him from the back of the pack, using an alternate strategy, getting on those mediums when these drivers are on the hards, and joining this front pack that now puts him in great position to hang on here to when you go and put those softs on. He's now in the fight for the lead. We talked about before the race, maybe he had to think about just how do I get in position to get some points. He's already done that if he can hold on to this position. Now it's about being a part of the conversation for the win, because you're just a couple cars behind, and we've seen how quickly people go from being the leader or second place to third to fourth and vice versa.
Yeah, and also as well, they've done the hard tyres, haven't they? Valerio Gallo, Kraz-e and Guy Barbara. So they've already gotten that phase of the race out of the way. So if he can get track position, there is a battle de facto for the race win, essentially, because he'll be on the same compound of tyres at the end of this one. The disadvantage maybe if he's expended a bit more fuel. Look at this, and now kicking off. Miyazono lunging to the inside. Serrano and Jura also going 2x2 through the exit of turn 1. That's opening the door. Valerio Gallo's going to get a bit messy here as we come in towards the hairpin bend. Drumont's ready to try and pick his pocket there as well. Gallo's in the middle of a bit of a sandwich here, and he might come off second best, but manages to get himself now alongside Drumont for the edge of the corner, and Serrano bails out of that battle as we come and flick it through the left-hander. Gallo's going to have the inside line of the grip under braking, gets himself through and into 4th place. That was an amazing bit of driving from all of those concerned in the first sector, because it looked like it could have got pretty ugly, that one.
And it put them all 3 wide in consecutive corners, and Serrano was the big loser of all this, being on the outside there of turn 3, the International Horseshoe. There's just no grip, especially if you're forced to the 3rd groove right there. He couldn't get accelerating, falls all the way back to 6th, and has really been at the front 2 positions most of this race. He has serious work ahead of him.
Yeah, amazing job from all of those drivers, and for Valerio Gallo, you know, he says he plays for fun, which helps him not get overloaded with training. I've known Valerio for quite a long time now, and he is one of the most calm, cool and collected characters in the Gran Turismo World Series, and also one of the most competitive. He knows how to pilot one of these machines, and he just does it for the absolute sheer joy of racing. Look at Jura all over the back here of Miyazono, but Gallo's coming through like a storm, pulls to the high side, goes to the outside. That's going to leave him a bit vulnerable, but he's got so much grip under braking, he's able to pull alongside Jura, and I think he's just going to have to bow out of it on the exit of turn 1, which he does so. But if that doesn't show you the difference in performance between worn medium and worn hard tyres, I don't know what will. Like I said, the only question mark for Valerio Gallo is, has he expended more fuel relative to those drivers in front of him? Because it might cost him a bit later on when they start making their final pit stops and have to take fuel on board. Let's have a look here at Miyazono then, Serrano and Labutale. This is going down towards turn 1. And Miyazono lunged to the inside of Jose Serrano at the start of this most recent lap. He's now just dropped down to 3rd place because Paul Jura is through and into 2nd.
There's no safe place
honestly.
in the top 5. It's just constant movement, constant actions. They're all moving around and jockeying for position, utilizing the draft to fire it down the inside of certain corners, putting people in awkward positions. This is an awkward one right here. You got to bow out of it right here. You can't go side by side through the bus stop. It's just not possible in the X 2019. You'll be way slower than you want to be on the exit.
Blink and you'll miss it sort of stuff. The medium shop runners have pulled a bit of a blinder in this race, actually, to be honest, because they start on the hard tyre, they got that phase out of the way, and now they're really taking profit because the field hasn't spread out like you might see in a more traditional style circuit, because of course the slipstream is just so powerful and the drivers just sitting in all of those trains. They've really been able to take profit in this mid-stage. It's brought a lot of them right into contention.
As we're on board here with Valerio Gallo, looks to the outside right now. His right rear tire is really worn, so it's going to be about how long can he hold on. Oh, it's so tight through there. It's so tough to be side by side. Both competitors have to work together. If they go down into the International Horseshoe, a bit of contact.
That was Gallo getting 2 for the price of 1, going down into there as well. He went from 5th place up into 3rd place at the expense of Miyazono. Guy Barbara's there ready as well. This is going to start getting pretty scrappy before too long, and someone unsure is going to come off second best. We flick it through into the right-hander. Serrano's on the inside of Guy Barbara for 5th position. Gallo's there in 4th place. He looks pretty safe there for now, but as we come in towards the left-hander and come onto the banking, now we're going to start seeing the slipstream, and now we're going to see Guy Barbara getting right into contention for this one. Inestrosa, Cardinal and De Bruin, by the way, have all gone onto the soft tyres for their final stint in this race. They'll have taken fuel on board for that pit stop there as well. Through the banked left-hander we go as we head down in towards the Le Mans chicane. 2x2 at the sharp end of this one for the lead. Labutale versus Paul Jura. Into the braking zone we go. Labutale, the victor on that occasion. He holds on to the sharp top end of this race.
And what was a 5-car pack has extended into a 7-car pack here as we get towards this final pit stop for the soft tires, happening any moment here.
Yeah, it's going to be any time now. These drivers are going to start coming in as they do. There we go. So into the box for Jura, Laboutelet, Miyazono. And look, they're all following suit. They've got no choice. They're now bound by circumstances here. And the crucial thing is they're all going on to the soft tyre for the end of this race. But look at the fuel difference there. Serrano, he's managed to save fuel. He's got, what, 5 litres more than some of the other competitors. Gallo, for example, 22 litres. And it's 3 litres per second more refuelling time. So that's going to cost him time and possibly track position there here for Valerio Gallo. So that's what I was saying about that being the question mark over the latter stage of this race. So though he's gained track position here, it's going to leave him with a bit more work to do in the closing stage of this one. Now Jura has taken advantage of having saved a bit more fuel, and he goes through into the race lead against Thomas Laboutelet. Miyazono's in 3rd. Gallo is into 4th position, ahead now of Jose Serrano, Kylian Drumont and Guy Barbara. So 7 cars in the battle for the lead with just under 6 laps now to go.
And Serrano was the big loser in that whole sequence there. Through the end of that last stint, he just lost that track position through the altercation down to turn 1, and now fighting for 5th here on the inside, back onto the banking through turn 6. He holds on to that over Guy Barbara, but he's got some serious work to do to get back to the pointy end of this field. It's going to be a tall task to navigate himself back up to that lead pack. They've got a bit of a gap now, and then make some passes.
Yeah, it's starting to splinter off here, hasn't it, really, from being that 7-car battle. It's sort of gone from a 7-car down to 1 4-car battle, and then you've got that gap of about 7/10 of a second, but it takes that one moment, that one mistake, and it goes from that 4 right back up to that 7-car battle, especially if these top 4 start squabbling amongst one another. If they start knocking 7 bells out of each other, then you've got a real... Exactly, that's what I mean. You've got a real battle on your hands. And I have to say, Valerio Gallo, I thought he was going to lose a bit of track position here, courtesy of having less fuel on board, but it's worked out really nicely for him. So maybe he underfueled his final stint. Maybe he just took a bit less fuel on board. He's calculated this one a bit more accurately than some of his other competitors, and that's why he's into 4th place and didn't drop down right to the end of that train of drivers.
And he's got the benefit of riding here behind these couple of drivers, utilizing that track. Maybe he can make up for a little bit of that difference here, and then have enough to be able to strike later in those last few laps, because he knows he's timed out the fuel perfect.
Plenty of time for things to change, but at the moment, Jose Serrano's lead would be whittled down to just 2 points going into the World Finals in Fukuoka in December. You can see just how close it is here in terms of the battles. And then that's the thing, though, for Jose Serrano, he's in P5. He's won both World Series events so far. But you can see just what a difference it would make if he only gets 2 points on the board here tonight.
25 laps in this race, 8 cars in the lead pack right now. This is anyone's race, especially if they get to start dicing it up and side by side anytime. All these drivers waiting for the chance to strike.
Yeah, that 4-way battle is starting to just get reduced down ever so slightly, because Jose Serrano is not too far adrift. He's only about 9/10 of a second away, which might sound like a fair bit of time, but it's definitely within the slipstreaming range, and he's got enough time to continue closing that deficit down. And look at that, in fact, he's now gone to 2/10 of a second, so yeah, exactly that. Yeah, Miyazono to the outside, Laboutelet in the middle, Jura on the inside, Gallo's there ready to try and pick his pocket as well. In we go to the first turn, Jura on the inside, Laboutelet on the outside then here, side by side with Serrano versus Miyazono in the background for position as well. Oh, Miyazono with a big lunge to the inside, contact, bang, into the side of Laboutelet. Serrano's going to get shoveled to the curb on the outside. That's going to cost him drive. It's going to cost him a place to Valerio Gallo and also Guy Barbara there as well. Miyazono's now through into second as we ride on board with him. Barbara is on the outside here. Well, I thought it might be a couple more laps before the gloves started to come off, but, well, they come off and they're throwing the kitchen sink in it already.
See, elbows out here right now as we go through the infield. And oh, look a bit into Barbara there from Drummond. Just a hip check as they got onto the banking right now. 3 wide here for the 4th position, and Serrano watches all this, just trying to navigate through it. He continues to lose positions.
Yeah, England-Strohs is coming right into play for this one here as well. Guy Barbara is about 8/10 of a second off the back of these 7 drivers that are all fighting for the race lead. I say 7 drivers because Kylian Drumont has dropped back a little bit off of the top 3. It's about 1.3 seconds or so. So the sharp end of this one, Jura, he's trying to check out of this one here.
He loved what he saw behind him with all that jockey position in 2 wide. It allowed him to gap out by 1.2 seconds. That's still within draft range But Lubunale and Miyazono have to get to work here, drafting with each other to get back to Europe.
Yeah, 3 to go then here as we come in towards the left-hander of turn 1. They've got to be sensible and smart about this one if they want to challenge for victory, and it would be a huge dent in the title challenge for Jose Serrano. I remind you, he had won both World Series events in London and Berlin and has a 3-point advantage. That will be whittled down to 2 points as we go into the World Finals. So it's going to be a very tense time for Jose Serrano, I would imagine, in the cockpit of that car if he finishes in P5. But again, there's still a bit of time for him to try and turn around those fortunes.
And Paul Ura's just got 2 more tenths on that lead right now, up to 1.4 seconds. That's the biggest lead we've seen in this race yet, with just a couple laps to go. 1.5 now as they get onto the banking. He's doing exactly what we talked about, what we thought Jose Serrano was trying to do earlier and had the chance to do, and that is jet away from the field, get away from that track, and see if you can get to where they can't even get to you.
Up to nearly 320 kilometres an hour, over 320 kilometres an hour as we come into towards that chicane then. Lubunale and Miyazono need to do everything they can to close the deficit down, because Miyazono and Miyazono rather, beg your pardon, and Lubunale can see their chances of victory slipping through their fingers, because Ura is driving like he's left the gas on at the moment.
Look at him weaving, he's trying to avoid the draft. He's trying to break the draft by weaving a little bit through the section there on the straightaway. It looks odd, but that's exactly what he's attempting to do.
Yeah, coming down in towards turn 1 then. So through to that left-hander we go. And it's ebbed and flowed so much this race, hasn't it? Valerio Gallo was a little bit loose there in the first corner. That might leave him vulnerable to attack from Angelina Stroza. So Gallo's challenge for victory looks to have faltered somewhat in the closing stages, as it now has ebbed and flowed just a little bit more. And from what was a 7, nearly 8-car scrap a couple of laps ago, it's now reduced down to, well, one driver who's got a lead of about a second or so. Then you've got Miyazono and Lubunale involved in their own scrap with one another, and you wonder again whether fuel might be coming into it. I mentioned about Valerio Gallo maybe under fueling a bit. Look at that, he's got 9 litres relative to some other drivers in front of him who've got 13, 14 litres, so they might be able to push that bit harder in the closing stages of this race.
Yeah, he didn't want all that tossing about that we had there, where they were running into each other and messing around. It really broke up the draft for him and put him in a position where he had to be not able to utilize the draft to stay up there track position wise, and so it's fallen back to 6. It just hadn't quite worked out.
Yeah, Paul Ura's played an absolute blinder in this race though. Can he hold it though to the end is the crucial question. Look at the run that Lubunale got on the exit there of the Le Mans chicane. He's going for the high line on the outside. It's a longer route around that corner, but he gets it back into the slipstream quite nicely there. Miyazono, as you said, trying to break that toe, I'm sure, before too long. Lubunale goes for the outside line as they go 2 by 2 across it. 2 to go at the end of this one here. Lubunale with the outside line for second. Miyazono on the inside, down in towards turn 1. Miyazono will have track position, but when he's able to hold it, Lubunale is going to get hung out to dry on the outside here. And again, just one corner of battling, and look who's there in the background. Jose Serrano and Kylian Drumont. They are right away ready to start nipping at his heels for those podium places.
They're saying, we're back, we're here, we can see you. If you get side by side again, we're ready to strike. And I thought Lubunale was trying to use the draft there to help Miyazono get back towards Paul Ura, but he just didn't have the chance. It didn't work out. The timing was awkward there down the straightaway, and they actually lost a bit of time.
Yeah, so through on towards the banking we go once more. Here is Jose Serrano, the man who has dominated the GT World Series and the Nations Cup. You can see his compatriot at the sharp end of this race, just a second or so down the road, and you wonder whether the chance of victory has slipped through Jose Serrano's fingers here this evening in Los Angeles, because he's sitting P4. Anything can happen, but it's a tall order to be able to close that deficit down on a circuit as tricky and as reliant on the slipstream as this one, especially with the other drivers in front also having the advantage of that slipstream. So we come round the final corner, we come across the timing line, ready to start the final lap of racing in the Nations Cup. It's Ura, Miyazono, Lubunale, Serrano, Drumont, all separated by a very small margin in this battle for victory here at Daytona. Who will be claiming the checkered flag?
And they just kind of half-second out that lead for Ura right now. They're going to be right on his heels. They get back to the banking if they can stay right here. Lubunale into Miyazono. Oh my my goodness.
Miyazono gets spun round. Laboutelet is hit into the side there as well by Kylian Dumont on the exit of the corner. So the Frenchman's race has really come undone, and you would imagine there's going to be a penalty coming the way of Thomas Laboutelet. It's opened the door though for Dumont. His compatriot walks straight through on the inside, and Miyazono, the big loser, he's dropped down into fifth place and is somewhat spread the field out in this battle for the victory then here. Ura's gap is now up to over a second with his compatriot Jose Serrano just a second or so down the road. Can Serrano invent something in the final sector of this race to challenge against Paul Ura's lead?
It's going to happen all down here at the Le Mans chicane. It's all about how you get through here. If it's clean and up to stuff, he'll be
great driving by Serrano right there.
Under a second lead, but still, even with that 8/10, 7/10, he should be fine.
Laboutelet with a 3-second penalty. That's his race done, and any chance of points going completely out of the window here tonight. What a shame there for Laboutelet, and even bigger shame though for Takuma Miyazono, who lost out on a chance of challenging for that win. No such bother though for Paul Ura. He comes across the timing line to take a commanding victory. Paul Ura wins World Series 3 of the Nations Cup here in Los Angeles ahead of Jose Serrano. It's a Spanish 1-2 in LA ahead of Kylian Dumont, who completes the podium.
Big up guys, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in round 4. That's right, I've been Kraz-e-kraz. This is GT World Series.
We were talking about
Thank you.
Jose Serrano in 5th place, possibly seeing his championship lead.
Yeah, if you're new to the channel, add, join, play, comment, most importantly, enjoy all content. Thank you for all the support so far. You are the subscribers. You are subscribed. That's right. Come get some. I'm Kraz-e-kraz. K-R-A-Z. Kraz-e. That's me.